good number of you. That's great. I hope you all had a great holiday season. I hope you sold a lot of products this holiday season. And I put this slide up here for you to look at these people. And if you look at these people, they probably don't look nearly as much like your customers as the other people here in the room, right? But those are mainstream customers. Maybe not the baby, but the older ones. Mainstream customers. And if you did not hit the volumes that you expected to hit this year, it's likely because the reality is connected products, for the most part, have not become mainstream products. But that's what we hope for you, I'm sure you're hoping for yourself, for next year, holiday season. Now, I was an early smartphone user. I had a Palm Pilot, a Trio, a BlackBerry, and when that first iPhone came out, I was shocked that my toddler could scroll through the photos so easily. It was super easy to use. And we're on our way towards 6 billion smartphone users by 2020. And I would argue that that's largely because those products were so easy to use that normal people could use them. Now, people are making bold forecasts about the Internet of Things and connected products. Mark Andreessen was recently quoted as saying, in 20 years, every physical object will have a chip embedded in it. That's every table, every piece of clothing, every chair in this room, every soda can. Now, and you've all heard the broad, bold forecasts. And I've been in this industry long enough to know that we should take those forecasts with a grain of salt. But let me scale that back a little bit and imagine with me for a moment that in your home you have 200 connected products. It's not unreasonable. It's definitely not anywhere close to every object in your home, but 200 connected products. And now let me ask you, who set up those 200 connected products? What if you need to change your Wi-Fi password in your house? Yeah, exactly. So you get it. This is the model that we're using today for device connectivity fails for mainstream customers trying to get products connected to the internet. Since we started this company, we've talked to hundreds of people in the industry about this, and more often than not, they stop me and say, wait a minute, let me tell you what happened to me last week. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about printers being impossible to get connected to the internet or falling offline, people receiving phone calls from someone else for whom they're the tech support, right? We've all been there, we've all known that. In fact, one Wi-Fi startup executive that I talked to mentioned to me that he has a bunch of connected thermostats and connected smoke detectors in his house. And his internet service provider, his cable company, sent him a new Wi-Fi router. He brought it into his home, got it all set up, and then all those devices get disconnected. And he spent 2 hours on Saturday morning trying to get these things reconnected, threw up his hands. And what does he have today? A bunch of expensive, unconnected thermostats and smoke detectors. He could have done much better buying a $14.95 version at Home Depot. So, and these stories aren't unusual. I hear them all the time, and I'm sure many of you have experienced similar things. But these are early days of this market. These are the days of the Trio and the Palm Pilot. These are not the days yet in the connected product space of the iPhone. But those of you who raised your hand earlier who make products, if you have a trickle of mainstream customers that are starting to use your products, you're seeing an increased support cost and an increased return rate, and customers are starting to get angry about how complicated these products are to use. So you're feeling this problem. You're the early indicators of the problem. I see heads nodding out there. So you understand this. And people in this industry, we are trying to solve the problem. And you'll hear a panel tomorrow about support. And I went online recently and bought an Epson printer from Amazon.com. $44 for the printer. Amazon wanted to sell me a $79 installation package where someone comes to my house and gets it set up. $79 goes to Amazon, $44 for the printer. So how many of you in the connected product space want to hand over 2/3 of the revenue to someone driving to the house and get it installed? Raise your hand. Okay, no one. It really does ultimately fall on us as product companies to solve this problem for our customers. In fact, I would go so far as to say the most important issue that we have to address is not interoperability, it is ease of use. It is to make it so that these products can be used by mainstream customers. And I believe that we can do it. And the way we do it is not through sending people to people's homes to install them. It's through the product manufacturers, for those of us in this room, making those products easier to connect and easier to use for normal customers. And we can do it. I know that we can do this. And if we're going to hit that 20 or 50 or 200 connected products per home, we must do it. And we built this company to make that happen. And for those of you who raised your hand earlier, I would love to hear if you agree with us and you think that it would be helpful to make these products easier to connect and easier to use. I'd love to hear from you, and especially if you don't think so, I would really love to hear from you. I'd love to hear the counter argument to that. We'll have a table at the reception later tonight, so please feel free to come by and talk to us. And thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Next is Art Lancaster, CTO of Affinity. Art.
Good afternoon. Affinity is in our 12th year. We're a network management and services company for connected devices and products. Our customers are a combination of large broadband service providers, companies like Time Warner Cable, and on a global basis, and also, in addition to that, connected products companies. Originally, that was gateways, routers, set-top boxes as customers of our services. Now it's consumer products companies making appliances, TVs, entertainment products, and so forth. I'm actually here wearing two hats today. I'm also a board member of the All-Scene Alliance, and I chair a working group, technical working group in the All-Scene Alliance. For this topic, ease of use, interoperability, and so forth is a very key thing to have broad cooperation from many companies working on a common platform. That's what the All-Scene Alliance is about. We're now a little over 2 years old as an alliance. We have a protocol that's been adopted by 200 companies making products. We have a booth not far from here in the Sands that I invite you to come see, where many of our companies are present, a nice large pavilion. This is our first year with such a pavilion at the exhibit, and it's also the first year where we have a certified program, and we have a lot of certified products in market already and many more coming. So the types of products that are typically using All-Scene's protocol, which is called AllJoin, are largely connected with Wi-Fi, although it's completely independent of the physical layer underneath, its application layer. And that was key for ease of use and interoperability. The onboarding service with AllJoin is you get out of the box, you turn it on, it connects. Usually with the help of a mobile app. And you don't have to enter things like Wi-Fi passwords and things like that for the most part. Depends on which mobile device you might have. You might have to in some cases, but it's just a passphrase away. Very important is privacy for broad adoption. There's a lot of concern and fear about if I'm using automation for things. Who's going to know what I'm doing? Am I open to attack? One of the things that we're really proud about in the All-Scene Alliance is what we have as endpoint-to-endpoint security. If you use a mobile app on your Android device to control that Lifex LED colored lamp in your home, and you do that away from home, no one else in the world knows you did that. It didn't change anything in a database. It's actually 2 layers of encryption. My company is delivering a turnkey cloud service for All-Scene Alliance. It's called Chariot, and we're demonstrating that at the booth as well. If you have a chance, stop by and see that. But that allows you to have instant real-time, endpoint-to-endpoint, your app to the thing in your home. And your app thinks it's at home when you're not at home, and that's completely unique. I'm not aware of others using that approach. Benefit, again, is no one has in a database somewhere that you left home, you open your garage door, no one, unless you've entitled them to get the telemetry. And again, no other solution I know of in market today is currently doing that. This is available now. We do this on a turnkey basis for connected products companies. You won't see anything from Affinity in products, so it's baked in just like the protocol is. So thanks again for listening, and look forward to the rest of the panel.
Thank you, Art. Next is Stuart Lombard, President and CEO of Food.
Thank you very much. We make Wi-Fi connected thermostats. So our mission is to use technology to help consumers conserve energy, save money, and reduce their carbon footprint. And really thinking about how we use technology to make customers' lives better. And I would certainly echo the comments that Rob made about ease of use being one of the most critical drivers of success with connected products, of which one component is clearly how you get connected to the network. And so, thank you.
Great. And finally, it's Kevin Robinson, who's the Vice President of Marketing for Wi-Fi Alliance.
So good afternoon, everyone. Many of you may not be familiar with Wi-Fi lines, but I can bet that all of you have had their lives impacted by Wi-Fi and the work we do. Wi-Fi Alliance is the worldwide network of companies that brought you Wi-Fi. We're currently made up around 700 different companies. Many of them are household names. You can see them out on the showroom floor as you walk around this week. One of the most important things we've done as an organization for the past 16 years is to run the Wi-Fi Certified program, which is essentially an interoperability certification program that ensures that an end user gets the best possible experience and that their devices work regardless of vendor. As we start looking into the Internet of Things, some of these new opportunities, that interoperability is going to be even more critical. It's one thing today, pretty sure that you can go out and look for a particular brand of product that you like and find a smartphone and a laptop made by that particular company. Now I challenge you in 5 years to go find a washing machine and a refrigerator and a car and a laptop and a thermostat, all made by a single vendor. And that's why multi-vendor interoperability is going to be absolutely essential going forward. And I would like to echo the point about ease of use. Those ease of use approaches also being multi-vendor interoperable, because it's one thing to learn, hey, this is really easy to use. Unfortunately, I have to get an entirely different mental model when I go from vendor A to vendor B to vendor C. So with all the work we've done, we now are leading an industry that has shipped more than 12 billion products, and we have just under 7 billion that are still out there in use today. So we're have some exciting things going on, even though we're mature technology. I'm sure later on we may talk about some of the work we're doing in longer range low power Wi-Fi.
Excellent. So I'm going to start off the discussion just by opening it first to the audience. And interoperability can mean a lot of different things to different people. So I have a polling question here. And to answer this, you have to text to this number 22333. That's the number you text to. The question is, which aspect of interoperability is most important from a consumer perspective? And the answers here, if you think it's the out-of-box experience, right, just the setup and configuration, you text 30894. If you think it's being future-proof and obsolete, those kinds of things, it's 3080904. So as you chime in your answers to those questions, I'd like to get the audience, the panel's perspective on the same question. Interoperability is a lot of things, and we've kind of talked about different aspects of really what it means. But from a consumer perspective, what do you think is most important?
So we work very hard that ease of use and interoperability are actually really intertwined, because the simple question I would have for you is, if your mother swung by Best Buy today and picked up a Wi-Fi product, what is her confidence or your confidence that when she brings it home it's going to connect? And I would contend it's pretty high. And I would argue if you go down to the booth on the show floor today and you picked up the various connected home products are down there from lots of different vendors, and you picked 5 of them at random and brought them home, what's the likelihood you think they're going to connect? Because there's a lot of different things being used. And so ease of use and interoperability from a consumer standpoint means when I drive home and my poor mother plugs it in, that it does what she thinks it's going to do. And so from our standpoint, unifying around an IP-based system, right? Consumers don't care about the underlying technology. They don't care what radio is being used. They don't care what network's being used. They care about what they bought the product for, right? Did I buy it because I wanted a thermostat that I can talk to remotely? Did I buy it because I wanted home security? And it has to fulfill those functions. And the device makers and we in the standards bodies and things like that have to resolve these various standards, and when you get it home, yes, it's going to come out of the box, it's going to join your network securely, safely, and it's going to provide the consumer experience that consumer expects.
Now, I would largely agree with that, although in recent testing we've done, first of all, thank you to the Wi-Fi Alliance for making that possible, but second of all, with recent user experience testing we've done, reports that we've seen, only about 80 to 85% of people can get Wi-Fi products connected reliably. actually sort of disastrous, even with mature technologies that are out there today. Now, I'll bet it's much higher in this room. But in random people off the street, it's 80 to 85%. And you know, one of the things I think that we as an industry need to think about is we're largely talking to people who are making systems that want that kind of interoperability, but there are a lot of businesses whose primary mission is not interconnection with other things, who are going to make siloed solutions. You know, the connected Barbie doll will probably not need to talk to the connected refrigerator, and that's okay. And many of the products are enhanced by internet connectivity, but not necessarily enhanced by interoperability within the home. And so I think we need to keep both of those things in mind.
I think one of the key things for us is that we're kind of evolving to a new generation of what we've been calling Internet of Things on connected products. It's a lot more than just smart home that was lights and locks. It's you buying an appliance, a refrigerator, a washing machine, everything from toaster ovens to TV sets to entertainment products, stereo systems. These are multi-vendor things you expect to buy at Best Buy, bring home, plug them in, and they should simply work with the other things you have in your home. So I think the Wi-Fi onboarding is largely an expectation that's going to work. The majority of people get it, there are certainly struggles. So there's opportunity in solving that struggle. But there is expectation the other way on these connected products when you bring it home. And it's mostly true the other way, that if you bring something home, it's likely not going to work with the other things you have. As long as it's an island, you've got one app and one product, it's kind of okay. It'll probably work because it's connected with Wi-Fi. But that's kind of not so interesting in general, and you can't do things like have a smart kitchen where you've got things that need to communicate with each other. And so that's really what we're about in the LC Alliance is if you bring it home, it has the certified mark just like Wi-Fi did. We're trying to have all join certified B. Bring it home, connect it. If you have all join certified, I don't care who you bought it from. And no, you don't have to have Comcast or AT&T or somebody brokering it all for you. It'll just work. So to us, that's a kind of mission imperative as an alliance to have that capability. We're not there yet. But I think within a year, you could start feeling we're getting there, that you can buy consumer products, bring them home, and have them actually connect to others that have that certification mark. So certification is very key to do that.
And I think, Art, I think you hit a number of good points. And you know, absolutely, you know, the vast majority of people can set up the Wi-Fi network, but we're approaching a point where that is going to become more of a challenge due to the types of people that are now interacting with connected products. They're not people who are technically sophisticated necessarily. The picture of the little baby, they probably will be more sophisticated than many of us in a few short years. But you know, more and more you're getting into types of devices where people don't want to be an IT expert to get that device connected. Today, when they bring a washing machine home, you know, depending on how it's powered, they might just plug a power cable. Okay, great, it works, right? And so, how do you get that same ease of use that it just simply works together? You know, certainly, as an organization, Wi-Fi Alliance is doing work around ease of use. But the point that I want to highlight that Art said was, you know, I will sometimes pose this question, you know, how many apps does it take to turn on a light bulb? Right? So you got app 1 turns on the light bulb in your kitchen, and maybe you bought something else and you have app 2 for another light bulb, or maybe a third app for your washing machine, right? And so you know, from a networking technology perspective, you know, we're going to be relatively agnostic. You know, we'll build whatever we want on top of IP, right? And Wi-Fi is going to do well, and these other connecting technologies will do well. But it's how do you get past that barrier around application interoperability and service interoperability so that users can accomplish something useful? Because the onboard is not just getting on the network. It's getting to a point where the user can accomplish the task that they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, actually, I completely agree with Kevin's point. Interoperability has very broad aspects, and we need to think about interoperability not only on the wireless communication or protocol layer, but it should go all the way to the end user experience. As you said, that if I buy a new product, I don't want to have a different app, or I don't want a different cloud service, a different separate password, and etc. Everything needs to interoperate, so that what we are doing on our level, new level of the wireless technology, what the OC or OIC are doing, they are the correct things, the right things, but then argument that it's not enough. It needs to go all the way to the end user and to the palm of the user. So we need to see it through all the way. Only then we need to interoperability.
So I'll be the dissenter. So I think the most important thing today, so we're in a market shift. The market's not steady, and there are clearly different segments in the market. But today the most important thing about interoperability is out of the box, right? And connectivity connected, and I think actually Wi-Fi works really well. I would label it like the 1972 Ford Thunderbird my dad had developed, which is in 1972 the Ford Thunderbird was pretty damn good. You know, we drove around in it and had a massive backseat and we loved it. Right? Doesn't mean it couldn't be better. It doesn't mean that cars today aren't better, but it actually works pretty well. And I think if you think about the mainstream consumer is the person who says, I have no idea how this device works, but I love it. You know, in our research, one woman said, I love my husband, but I really, really love my iPhone. I'm very with my iPhone, right? And on this device, I've got 57 apps. They don't all have the same username and passwords. They don't all have, it's not one monolithic app. They don't have to do all those things. And I think, you know, when you look at the mainstream consumer in connected home products, based on our research, is buying a very simple value proposition, right? So I'm buying a thermostat, it's great on my wall, I can connect it through my phone, it's going to save me more energy, it's going to make me more comfortable. Why wouldn't I buy it? I think if you look at the Parks Associate data, 50% of the new thermostats sold will be Wi-Fi connected next year. And that is your mainstream audience. And if you look on Amazon.com or you go to, you know, speak to people from Home Depot or Lowe's or Best Buy or those, the top selling products that they're selling are Wi-Fi connected. And so people are buying these products. And I saw a demo last year at CES, which was a great demo. We're making nameless who was giving it. And they had sensors and lights and coffee makers, and they had a garage with a car in it, and you know, the door lock connected. And the guy was giving the demo, and he was like, you know, when you come down in the morning, your sensors are going to notice you, and they're going to like turn on your coffee maker, and the lights are going to come on, and then automatically your door lock is going to unlock, and when you walk out the door, you know, your garage door will be open and your car will be running, right? And one guy next to me says, I was just taking out the garbage, like. No. So I think it's not that we're not going to get to a point where all these devices need to talk to each other. Clearly, there are use cases where you can find really great use cases, and we think of them as curated use cases in terms of what people want to accomplish, as opposed to like, you know, connect any sensor to any device and hope. And I think, you know, when you talk about consumers about, you know, what do you want to accomplish, if you throw too much into it, they just get confused. And there's this huge worry around what if it breaks? What if it doesn't work? You know, sometimes I can't print from my printer, so if I can't, you know, if I can't make coffee in the morning, that's going to be a disaster. Right? And so, you know, interoperability between devices is going to be very important, but I don't think it's where the market is. And then I would say, you know, some of the concerns around mainstream adoption of these technologies, I think, are overblown. People understand Wi-Fi, they understand how to connect these devices. I think it's one of the reasons that Wi-Fi is winning in the market, because I already know how to use it and it's easy.
So that comment was standing. We're going to talk about what the audience believes to be the #1 concern of consumers, is integration with other products they might have. And we have some data from our research that people who buy their first smart product, their first connected product, 51% of them have the expectation that it will work with other products that they might buy in the future. So this is obviously something that will continue to grow as people acquire more products. That percentage grows. So the question then is, how is that going to happen? There's a lot of platform solutions. So you're kind of representing one option, the Alston Alliance. There's the consortium. You have the smart home platform manufacturers, the service providers who provide kind of a seamless experience across multiple product categories. My question to the audience is, how many smart home or application platforms you think will gain mass market adoption? What is that number? And then I want to ask the panel, while they're chiming in, is it just a handful here? Is it 1 to 2? Is it 3 to 5? Is going to be a ton of different platforms to be successful? I'll start with you, Stuart, if you don't mind. You have limited resources, or any company for that matter, no matter how big, all has limited resources, and can have to make a choice about what platform they're going to integrate and why. How do you go about making that decision?
Sure. So I think we're going to be 3 to 5, would be my guess. I think the biggest driver right now is the mobile phone, right? So if you look at product interaction, consumers connected devices, probably 4 or 5 to 1 through my mobile phone versus any other interface, like an interface on the device or web portal or some other interface. And so the technologies that are in these products and the ecosystems that are built around these products, we believe are going to drive adoption. And then in addition to that, there are a whole bunch of technologies that are used in this device that are also going to drive adoption. So for example, there's a Wi-Fi chip and a Bluetooth chip in every single one of these devices. If you can leverage the billions of smartphones that get sold, I don't actually know what the number is, but big number, right? You're going to get better technology, better cost points, better price performance. And so, we're really focused on the ecosystems that we think can actually move volume, and then those that give us price cost advantage, price performance advantage versus other technologies.
Any other comments about the manufacturer deciding what ecosystem and what platform they might integrate with?
Sure, and so our belief is that different technologies are needed for different products, right? So, and the market's already decided this, right? So if you're making a home video camera, I suspect that's going to have Wi-Fi in it. If you're making a wearable, those seem to have settled on Bluetooth as a technology. If you're making a door and window sensor or a door lock, and you want 5 to 7 years of battery life, we see a lot more people using 54, things like that. The point for the consumer is, and I totally agree, that their idea of connected is that it connects to their phone, right? A connected product that doesn't exist on my phone, it must not actually be connected. However, how they're really using their phone is for setup and configuration, right? Philips Hue lights are a great example. Lots of people like to play with them and stuff. But the truth is, you don't actually change the color scheme of your lights that often. But changing the color scheme of your lights with a wall switch or a rotary dial is actually really hard. And doing it on a GUI on your phone and saying, I'd like this to be a little more red tint or something, is really easy. But once you set it, then my switch really works pretty well. And so there's an actual, if you look at what we try to do from a thread standpoint, where you've got to get the networks combined so these devices can all talk to each other, and it's got to be IP-based so I can talk to the phone in the car, those sorts of things. But in reality, right, my phone's here right now, and somebody in my house who wants to turn the lights on is still going to turn the switch. They don't want to have their phone join my network because they felt like turning their bedroom light on. And so device-to-device communication and interoperability is a key part of this problem, not just solving the device-to-phone or device-to-cloud.
And I generally agree in terms of major platforms as described. There'll be sort of 3 to 5 that are out there. But there's a little more to it than that. For example, Z-Wave and Zigbee are very broadly deployed for lighting control, switches, things of that nature. Recognizing the interaction between those types of devices that are mature, have been in the market for many years, and new generation things like, if you have a appliance like a refrigerator forgot to close the door and you wanted to interact with lighting or something else to alert you to that effect. We have a thing we call the Device System Bridge. It's an open source contribution from Microsoft and the LTE Alliance that allows you to have all joint applications interacting with Z-Wave and Zigbee devices. So that's one such example. You can use the same technology to add other physical layers. Then when you get up to the sort of application platform layer, that's where I'm thinking it's kind of like 3 to 5. You can kind of bet there'll be Google for sure, HomeKit for sure. And I'm really narrowing into consumer, because when you get into industrial, it's a lot more than that. That's more managed and constrained by IT managers and so forth. But in the consumer space, I think we'll end up shaking out to kind of like one other big one over time. and some shakeout over the next couple of years to get to that. And certification programs will become important in that sort of interoperation. One other brief comment. I kind of agree with your earlier comment. Most of us don't care about use cases like the one described. You know, that everything just happens automatically because I came downstairs, because your automation in your home doesn't know why you did that. But I do think there are areas in the home, such as the kitchen, where if you think about how we live in our homes, it's kind of the kitchen, the bedroom. Those are kind of like the main places we spend all our time. Even if you have a party with a bunch of people over, you're in the kitchen. There's a lot of great interaction between products that are traditionally not connected that happen when you connect them, in how you manage recipes, the food that's needed. Those get loaded automatically into your oven. Even tracking, it's easy now to track inventory of what you have. Get a suggestion for what you want to cook based on what you have. These types of things are very real. They're doable completely today. They'll be mass market within a year or two. And the interaction and interop between those things, that's the evidence of kind of the new generation of where we're going. And you can extend that to other rooms, but when you have related things in a given scene, it's easy to sort of comprehend what they do, and they sort of magically end up happening. That's the goal.
So just real quick, this says 3 to 5 is what the audience believes. My follow-up question really is there going to be more consolidation? So you talked about you're partnering with OIC or Alljoy. Thread is announcing partnerships with other protocols or application layer standards. PMP and OIC are working together. So how does it come together? We're at 3 to 5 now. Is there going to be further consolidation, or what's your thoughts on just how that?
To be fair, we're not at 3 to 5 now. We're at 30 to 40.
Yeah, exactly.
There has to be consolidation. It will happen. We don't know what will drive it, but there has to be.
Yeah, actually, the current number is over 40. It's between 40 to 50 actually. Definitely, it's clear that consolidation must happen. I can say that for sure that it will not be one, probably or not also 2. But it's difficult to say whether it will be 3 or 5, etc. You know, there are so many different use cases. I believe that in each use case, the technology that provides the optimal solution will survive that. There will be different markets. There will be not a single IoT market that covering the entire world and universal market. But there will be different segments, and different segments may use different technologies. And if this technology solves the problem in the best way, then it will lead to that it will succeed. So it's difficult to say whether it will be 5 or 10, whatever, but it will be whatever it will make sense. There is another thing that once there will be a really major pickup in the volumes of the devices being shipped, the new rules will come in. For example, we are talking about the consumer product price of this ownership of the solution, in my opinion, will play also a very important role in this case. And this will also become part of the equation.
Your thoughts on consolidation?
I totally agree with that point. You know, I think if I were texting answers to that question, I probably would have been in the minority and said more than 11. Because the reality is, in so many different use cases, as Stuart said earlier, that the companies that make the products are going to make products and solutions that serve their customers. And for every one of you that's making I would guess that many of you who are making products today are going to provide a cloud service connected to that product that's specific to your product. And if that is your strategy, that is another platform. And every company that comes out with a product that's connected to a cloud service has another platform. There may be some commonalities in terms of technology. You may be using Wi-Fi if it's connected to a building, or maybe using Bluetooth if it's connected to a person or to a phone. But the companies that are making new products today aren't going to be the 3 to 5 platforms that get standardized upon. There are going to be dozens and dozens of different siloed solutions that in reality may interact with each other at the cloud layer. Anything that isn't, in many cases, the things that are not time critical or latency critical are going to interact with the cloud, because there's a tremendous amount of flexibility in that. And if you believe that model, and if that's a model that fits for the products that you're manufacturing, then it's all about making sure that those devices get connected and stay connected to the internet.
The cloud layer raises a real privacy concern, which is one of the primary reasons in the All-Scene Alliance that there's a lot of local peer-to-peer communication. And one thing I didn't really highlight earlier is that to get smart interactions happening, it's actually the devices talking directly to each other in your home, never leaving outside. That you have true machine-to-machine automation possibilities, that you can write software at the application layer that isn't just your smartphone and a server and a database. It's actually because this event happened on this device, it told another device something happened, or the oven got too hot, things of that can be communicated all locally. And so I'm not saying this isn't important, I'm just saying that there's a lot more to it, especially as you get a lot of richness into the possibilities and as privacy gets more and more important. So it isn't only latency, it's also total privacy, a big thing.
So if I could add to that, I don't know if I know how many application platforms we're going to end up with at the end of the day. But one thing I'll draw from in terms of the experience of Wi-Fi in the Wi-Fi industry is one of the reasons Wi-Fi has been as successful as it has is that you can go out and buy, if you go buy the latest and greatest iPhone and you take it home, it's going to still work with the home router you had from 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And while you're certainly not going to have these, monolithic, some interoperable service or app that does everything for everyone, right? I also don't think that this idea of the IoT will ever really get off the ground if you have the fragmentation that we do have today. That somebody, if I'm putting a light switch, because I actually like systems where I have a hard switch along with my smartphone, right? I don't like switching out, turning off the circuit breaker and switching out, the wall switches very often. It's kind of a pain. I have my washing machine from when I got out of college. So if getting into a situation where the user feels like that decision they're making is going to tie them to something for the next decade, and they're unsure of where that technology is going to go, is only going to kind of cause them to freeze and not jump in at all. So I think that while there is going to still be a number of different platforms, getting to some reasonable number where you can have some longevity and people can feel confident that the purchase they're making today is going to still be useful 5, 8 years down the road is going to be important.
So I'd say a couple things. So one is I think you have two classes of devices, and maybe two types of standards. So you have your network layer standards, and then you have your application layer standards. And then you have two kinds of devices. You have devices that are powered, and you have devices that are battery operated. And the technologies that win in those different two classes of devices aren't necessarily going to be the same, right? So when you're powered, I think Wi-Fi is going to win. I think Wi-Fi is winning. I think Wi-Fi has won for the majority of devices. And then the question is, what do you do with non-powered, battery-operated devices when you want a long battery life? And right now, from where we sit, there are not a lot of really great options, to be honest. One of the challenges with mesh technologies is it assumes that you actually have powered mesh network already in place. Because your battery-operated devices, you want to go to sleep, so they can't really help you with the mesh. So in the case, let's say you've got a thermostat, and you've got a couple of peripheral door and window sensors, or you've got a temperature sensor that's remote, you can't use your battery-operated devices to expand your coverage with the mesh. That's a big problem, right? To me, that battery-operated technology is up in the air. Whether it is some mesh technology, whether it's PoE mesh, whether it's Wi-Fi Halo, I think we'll see sort of how that's going to shake out. And then on the application layer, I think the reality is you can only do so many. Like as connected device players, you can only support so many. And if you think about, I think about it like cogs or gears that need to mesh together, right? And the standards are changing like this, and your product roadmap is changing like this, right? So the more gears you have to mesh together to get a product out to the consumer, the more complicated it is, and the more likely that, you know, things aren't going to work. And so probably you can do a couple, or 3, or maybe 4, but you can't do a lot. Like we have, you know, 10 people working full-time on nothing but supporting HomeKit, for example. That's a big investment just to support HomeKit. And so, you know, how many of those investments can we make? You know, there are only a limited number of them, and those gears right now, especially where we are in the connected home space, are turning really, really quickly. And so I think it's going to consolidate pretty quickly because people just won't be able to support, you know, 5, 7, 10.
So the next question, or the next topic, is more on the impact of all the new application layer activities on the lower layers, the network layers. So the question to the audience is, you know, what impact is that going to have, if any? So you texted either no impact or it's a huge disruption or something in between. And so as they answer that question, I'd like to pose that question also to the audience. What impact are these new application layer standards going to have on network layers as well?
As we are impacted directly by that when we started with. Actually, it's good news and bad news. The good news that they will exist, and the message that they are bringing of interoperability and device agnostic or technology agnostic interoperability. Because once we realize, we would like to think that the UD technology will be the best that support the most use cases. We know that it can support probably the largest number of the existing technologies today compared to any other technology, but it still cannot support 100%, and we will have to coexist with other technologies that solve better different use cases. So the good news is that these things like audio and IoTBT exist. The negative with that is that we need to support each of them and many of them, and it simply duplicates our work. From our point of view, the best would be that if there would be a way to consolidate this and have one universal application layer. Actually, because at the end of the day, when we look at this application layer, there is not much difference between them in the way they are doing things.
So this question really fits well into my company, Affinity, and many of our customers that are in the broadband operator space. And we've worked with them even in what I call traditional smart home, which is lights, locks, and thermostats has jumped into that, and of course surveillance cameras. So the cameras and the thermostats have been Wi-Fi for a while, and embraced in a managed service. You can pay and add on to your broadband bill. This is kind of a whole new generation of IoT, and there's business case things for what does that mean to broadband operators. So I don't think from a technology perspective it's too disruptive in that it's got a whole range of new applications. It's not obvious to a broadband operator how they're going to make money with refrigerators and stoves as part of an automation package. It doesn't really quite fit into the security extended convenience model. It's more likely that you'll think of the GE or Electrolux or wherever you bought those appliances from with respect to the use cases that go with those. But there is an actually great opportunity, and really relates to some of the other things Tom that Parks looks at, which is who are you going to call? My refrigerator isn't working right now with respect to how it connects to things. Well, it's likely that you're better off if you have someone like a Comcast or Time Warner Cable or someone like that that's embraced all your connected stuff to the internet in some sort of a 24/7 supported package. And so I think there's a real opportunity there. This is new and emerging. As more and more things connect, especially things don't have user experiences on them anymore. A lot of these are like headless devices, but they're connected to the internet. And you need someone that has the ability to back that up, that can analyze your network, what's going on, your interference, these sorts of things. Who's going to do that? Well, actually, I think broadband operators are amazingly well positioned to provide that service. And many of our customers use some of our tools to do that as a managed service think there's a good opportunity. So it's really, I'm not sure it's directly answering this question, but I don't see it as so much a conflict of protocols as how do you get it to be part of a managed offering and yet still support the open market. If you buy stuff at Best Buy, you buy stuff at Sears, you bring it home and you want it to all work together.
So we work a lot at these network layers as well as the application layers. And what's interesting really is the network is actually kind of solved, right? The world is going to use IP.
Right.
And we can argue whether they converge on it this year or 5 years from now, but connected devices are going to be IP based. And so in reality, the application layers are adopting to that, right? They're adopting and saying we're going to run over IP. We're going to, what kind of bandwidth do I need? What kind of battery life do I need? What kind of reliability? What kind of latency? That helps me select what technology I might use as a device maker underneath my product. But I'm going to go IP based because then it's all going to integrate. And so really the application layers aren't having an impact on the network. The network choices are making the application layers adopt, right? Why is Zigbee now working with Thread over how to put their application layer over IP? Because IP is a future technology that is going to be widely used because it already is widely used, and we're just talking about taking it to a new class of devices.
So let me ask, I'm going to characterize here, maybe you don't want to be in this box, but Thread is relatively new. 802.11ah, which is the low power wireless protocol, is very new. DEC is relatively new in the smart home space, obviously very mature in other categories. How do you expect to gain share in the connected home space? What's the, how are you going to displace either incumbents or take share of the growth?
Sure. To be fair, right, Thread is building off of something that's been deployed a bit, so we can't argue with Wi-Fi deployment numbers with Bluetooth deployment numbers. But if you look at 2015, there was probably on the order of 50 to 60 million 15.4 mesh devices installed. That's a reasonable number of devices. Those devices can be upgraded to Thread. So we're really talking about using the underlying 15.4 radios, no different than we're talking about 802.11 radios, and saying what's the right networking technology that ultimately is going to come on. There is a lot of products out there using that today, and they may be using Zigbee today. They may decide to transition to Thread in the future. A lot of them this year will be shipping on Thread, but that's the market we're talking about. And 50 to 60 million devices doesn't move the needle in terms of a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi compared to phone volumes and things like that. But this is the beginning of this market, and we need this IP connectivity to really allow it to take off.
But from our perspective, actually, I can tell you that if ULE devices will end up selling these numbers, 50 or 60 million devices per year, it will be a huge disappointment for us. Just to give you an example, today the DEC industry, which is predominantly used for the callers telephones, and it's already not in at its peak. Still, this industry is shipping around 25 million chipsets per month, about 300 million per year. We believe that we will achieve much higher numbers. Again, if we are talking about many billions of devices deployed, shipped per year for the IoT, then actually 50 million, even 300 million, it's not really much. So we are really at the beginning of the growth, and I believe that anything can happen. Anything can happen in all the layers, on the network layers, on the protocol layers, that new players can come in, and imagine yourself that FCC or in other countries, they just change the ruling and actually something new, completely new pop up and completely change the games of the rules of the game. So basically, our strategy is to work with large manufacturers, and you will be seeing more and more actual companies introducing ULE products in 2016. In 2015, Panasonic was actually major introduction in the US. In Europe, there will be a couple of major deployments during this year. And I think that these are the guys who can drive the volumes, and this is what we're doing.
So from a Wi-Fi perspective, clearly the Internet of Things, it's a huge opportunity. there isn't going to be a single networking technology that wins out, right? I mean, there are going to be reasons to have, you know, there's Bluetooth, whether it's Thread, what have you, just based on 15.4. You know, what the Wi-Fi industry is certainly doing is we're looking at ways that we can develop complementary capabilities to what Wi-Fi already does today. Keep doing what we're doing well, so maintaining that outdoor connectivity. You know, security, which is something we haven't really talked about as much yet on the panel, but you know, ensuring that you're delivering security that companies, enterprises, consumers can count on, and of course having that ease of use. In the way I would define ease of use is how it was kind of defined earlier, that when you take it out of the package, it just works, right? That's what Wi-Fi certainly tried to do. From the Wi-Fi perspective, where we are expanding our portfolio is into the area of lower power and longer range. How do we extend connectivity within the home, in fact even beyond the home, with single hop, the ability for each of these devices to communicate on their own back to the home network and to the internet beyond, very easily, very reliably. So one of the things we were announcing this week was Wi-Fi Halo, which does provide that lower power, longer range Wi-Fi, operating in a lower band, giving you that ability to deal with obstacles and some of the barriers that you have in real world deployments when you want to get outside the home itself. So again, just kind of recap, for Wi-Fi, it's continue doing the things that we've done well and find areas where we can kind of expand the portfolio in a complementary fashion to what we're already doing today. Because ultimately, you made the point that people are going to interact with different things with this right here, and being able to integrate very easily with technologies that people are already using, that are already in the home, is going to be a key component of who ultimately gets significant share in the market.
So as a software company, I want to make a bit of a prediction on this physical radio stuff. These all have Bluetooth in them. Now all of them that are recent support the Bluetooth 4 and easy connectivity and pairing. If you watch what's in retail right now, there's already a lot of products that are Bluetooth connected products, Bluetooth light bulbs, Bluetooth wall switches, smart plugs that are Bluetooth, and they're mesh. The standard is about to go official soon. I don't remember exactly when, but there'll be an official mesh Bluetooth standard. All you need is your phone and the device when you're at home, and it more or less just works. It's very easy to do. It's there today in the market. It's just not all standard. So it's just simply as a prediction. Watch over the coming year. I think by this time next year, at CES next year, you're going to see a lot of Bluetooth products that are in the space we think of as smart home products. We in Allseeing Alliance sort of don't care. We're a software layer on top of that, and we'll support that fully. But I think it's very interesting. The main gap right now, don't buy it if you see it at the store, because there's no hub that's going to cause it to work when you're away from home today in the market. That'll get fixed, but there isn't anybody selling Bluetooth hubs I know of, with the exception of Apple TV is kind of if you're on the HomeKit side, it is a Bluetooth hub in the Apple land, that will work away from home. I think Schlegel Locks is the one example I know of that's a Bluetooth lock that works through HomeKit, but it's all Bluetooth.
Any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Today, IFT is a top solution to connect smart devices, but it still needs internet to work. And compared to a local solution that will be low latency and more secure, could it be like disappear in the years coming?
Well, let me briefly comment. I mean, AllJoin works entirely at home without an internet connection. If you have an app and a device at home. The Bluetooth example I just gave you also works locally without any internet connection at all, actually. Bulb and app with no internet at all.
I'm talking about if this and that, that connects many devices that can talk to each other. Like, for example, you have a Nest, Nest thermostat that can talk to Amazon Echo. They are not the same companies, but thanks to IFT, they can connect together. But so today, it's a good solution for connecting devices, but I'm wondering if on the long term it will be disappear because of local application layer.
Well, people want things to work away from home too, so just working at home isn't enough, I think, is part of the reason that's not enough by itself.
I would add that kind of flexibility that's offered by the IF platform, for example, is something that you really can only do in the cloud because it requires continuous change, it requires continuous evolution, continuous deployment, continuous integration of new types of products with new data models and new application profiles. And the cloud is actually fantastic for that because it can embrace constant change, which can allow for the backwards compatibility of some of these products that your refrigerator can be used for a decade, even though it may be using a profile from a decade ago. And that's actually one of the things that I think that Energy and all senior clients are really trying to work on, is that kind of backwards compatibility, the ability to embrace new features over time, but it's difficult.
So the smart scenes can be done entirely at home without the internet. We're showing that in the LC Alliance booth. We have an application that's a mobile app that stores the scenes and synchronizes them using all going between apps. And all of the living scenarios you think of as if this then that are all doable with an application that's one of our members called Higgins that we're demonstrating that does all those scenes in a simple way. You want to cloud connect them too, but I'm actually pointing out you don't have to do them in the cloud.
I think, to answer the question in maybe a little bit different ways is I think IF is a great service. I think the challenge for IF is less around technology and more around ease of use.
Yeah.
So can you take that, which is a really phenomenal service, and make it simple enough that mainstream users can use it? And then I think the challenge for IF is going to come really from other ecosystems that are going to have to do the same thing, right? So when you think about scenes, for example, that concept of scenes is really like a mini IF, right? Maybe it's only for connected home devices, but the idea that you can create a scene and when I say goodnight Siri, my lights turn off and my thermostat gets set and my door locks get locked, that kind of thing is really a functionality. So how do you make it easy enough that it really becomes mainstream, and how do you fend off the different people that I think are going to have to put it in their platform to enable that inter-device connectivity? I think that's really the threat for it.
Question?
Since we're talking about ease of use and interoperability, they're sometimes conflicting. For example, with Wi-Fi, you can implement a product where it's got basic cryptic commands to get set up, and you solve that by having an app that makes it free. Or you embed a web server in a Wi-Fi device. It's a little fatter, but now you can use it with anything that can access it. Some thoughts on that?
For those in the back, the question is about just is there a conflict between ease of use and interoperability?
I think there's definitely a concept between ease of use and sophistication, right? Down at that lower level, when you do have those cryptic commands, it's actually easier from a development standpoint. You can have cheaper chips that do it, and so there's definitely that trade-off. But with nominally infinite computing capability available in the cloud, I think that interoperability can continue to evolve. If you have a team of developers working on interoperability, you can be interoperable with every other cloud-connected company. And companies like IF are focused on that, providing that kind of interoperability. Now, there is still a requirement around how do you make that complexity, how do you shield the user from that kind of complexity. But once you get, my view is once you get those things connected to the cloud, you can actually do magical things. If you're trying to do it down on a device, it's actually very, very complicated. And so if at the cloud level, there is not a trade-off between interoperability and ease of use.
Questions?
So on the trade-off between interoperability and ease of use, at least from Wi-Fi's perspective, what we're focusing on is how do we get the industry aligned around a common way to do some of the interactions you need to have with the device. So let's say this example of onboarding. We're currently working on new provisioning technologies to make that as easy as possible. The underlying technology, may be relatively sophisticated, but there's no reason why it has to be. You have to expose that sophistication and complexity to the end user. So maybe as simple as okay, well, I tap my phone to a light switch, and there's a handshake over NFC or whatever you may be using to securely bootstrap a trust and get that device onto the network. It's a very simple interaction, literally tapping, and that's it. And it's also very, very secure. So as long as you can, you're working in organizations that can bring consensus within the industry on here's how we're going to create these specific building blocks that can then be leveraged in other ways, then I think there may be some trade-off, but ultimately the ease of use is what will be critical in the space going forward for people who are not technically sophisticated.
Next question? Yes, sir.
I envision a fully realized smart home in the future, not only having this interoperability amongst devices within it, but also this awareness of its surroundings, regional events, weather, traffic, energy events, and school calendars, so that it can adapt to what's going on outside of the house. They'll likely rely on more cloud-to-cloud communications. Are we having this conversation about interoperable standards of cloud-to-cloud application layer, or is the sense that the cloud implementations are adaptable enough, flexible enough that we can solve that problem? That's the important.
For those who didn't hear it, there's interoperability might include contextual awareness of things that are happening outside the house, not just the devices in the house. There's a cloud-to-cloud layer that might afford that or be most effective in implementing that. There's standards from an API perspective, cloud-to-cloud, to integrate more quickly and provide that kind of seamless experience in the cloud.
So, again, I'll share my experience. At the cloud layer, I can ask one of my developers who's in the room here today to do something like that, and he can actually get it done extremely quickly because those standards, HTTPS, very well established. The security interface between those are very well established. Big companies like Facebook and Google and others have established OAuth and different security mechanisms to allow that kind of interoperability. And there's a tremendous amount of flexibility in how you define those calls on an API so that they can integrate with each other. Now that also, of course, allows for a more rapid change. They have to be maintained and managed more effectively. But at the cloud layer, you can actually do that because you can have a constant deployment cycle without having to upgrade firmware on millions and billions of devices around there in the field. And so it's actually the dynamism of the data availability at the cloud layer is one of the things that makes it so attractive because the data on weather is available, data on the school calendar is available, but you can't count on it being the same next year as it was last year. But the distance from thought to business agreement to implementation is much, much shorter at the cloud layer.
I don't think there's any technical standard problems currently to realize that vision. I think as more and more products, like say your connected appliance or something, interact with the need to know about weather, that then it's becoming part of what service does the customer want to receive that information from, and will be choices. This is often one of the areas that you're not Google and you're competing with Google, you kind of always worry because there's just so much they have that kind of comes with their platform, and you can say similar things about Apple. So I think companies that are involved in consumer platform experiences will be brokering things like that as part of how they attract customers, and we're seeing that today, and I think you'll see a lot more of that as there's more connected things that benefit from that information in the home. Certainly thermostats and knowing the weather, we've already got examples of that today happening. Even in Nest, I think that's one of the features in Nest.
So, Stuart, did you have a comment just in terms of APIs is a very straightforward way, I guess, and maybe faster from an innovation cycle, but there's also maintenance. Can you speak to someone who's done it with many integration partners? What's the cost from a maintenance perspective if you have partnerships with APIs?
Sure. So I pretty much would echo what Rob said. Like, I think the basic ways that you interact with with cloud services are pretty well defined. They're super fast to be able to develop them, and then you have the maintenance aspect. I think you have to make a business decision over whether that use case is worth the effort to, you know, to keep and to maintain. So, you know, I think, you know, if you look at our product, I think if you look at Nest, you look at Honeywell, those products all have all the things other than the school calendar already baked into them that you talked about. And so I think, you know, those exist, but you make those on a you know, business case by business case thing. And again, there are only so many that you can do, so you got to figure out what the, you know, what the value proposition is. But it's super fast, and I don't think those, you know, the contents of what goes across those can't be standardized because it's not standardized. That's what makes it super rich. That's what means you don't achieve this lowest common denominator. You know, because when you put together a standard, the problem is, you know, especially if you're talking about an application layer standard, you know, everybody adds their own bells and whistles, so you end up with kind of the lowest common denominator. And one of the really nice things about, you know, the web APIs is that it allows you to do, you know, much more creative things. But there's effort to maintain and keep them, and you have to make that business case about whether it's, you know, useful or not. And that's, you know, that's why we get paid big bucks. That's the secret sauce.
Excellent. So that's going to be the last word. I want to thank our panel for their excellent commentary.